You should introduce three of your panelists because Maya and Vishek are here. I already introduced. So
thank you. We have like some.
Thank you. You know too much about me. So okay, forget how this.
I think all people here like conversation about them. So I'm not an exception here. Okay, so let's do this panel a little more dynamic because we have more two panels to discuss, and I want to invite Jason Shelton. So here, practical person. So he's former mayor of Tulepa, Mississippi, represents Democratic Party. Today he represents the presidential administration as regional administrator for General Services Administration region in Biden-Harris presidential appointee. So he with us today personally, and his case it's very interesting because it's pretty Republican state, and here have several wins of Democrats. So we'll see how he did that. Also, we have on Zoom Torin Wilkins. We have him or still no? Torin must be on. Okay. I also want to invite Karen Mulhauser. She's prominent political manager, and she worked as senior advisor in the presidential campaign of Barack Obama. As a leader of the consulting company Mulhauser and Associates, she has delivered consulting services for nonprofits and also for candidates. And she worked in this sector more than 35 years. And originally, she have experience in every election cycle from 1970s. So thank you so much for joining us today. And Miriam Razi, political manager and government relations professionals from Toronto, Canada, and also she also actively participates in current government relations projects and in election campaign in Canada. So we also wait Torin, right, as a speaker online. And I have short presentation for this discussion, also because we will discuss cases, and I have a little overview about elections, in the world. And Irina, if you give to Valia also.
Issues we will try to sort it out.
Okay. So if she will be a host, she can show my presentation with turnout information.
Okay.
Just
go ahead and
okay. So I have short analytics for you. It's like analytics about elections last year. I think it's pretty interesting in such conferences, so I grabbed some information about turnout. So the biggest turnout, it's turnout in Australia. Because if they don't go to elections, they pay a fee. So that's why they have the greatest turnout in the world, which it's 95%. So pretty big turnout. Only 5% of people want to pay fee because they don't came to elections. I said maybe with taxes they have the same situation. Then Malta, Sweden, Denmark, Philippines, Brazil, and Israel in the middle, like lower turnout in worldwide we have in Bulgaria, Barbados, Senegal, and not so much in United States. So I will share this analytics with you also. Second, my information is information about cost of election. And here, of course, United States, it's the champion, So if compare, Clinton and Trump financing, so it was more than $2 2 billions, and last elections also was more than $2 billion every election campaign. So that's why our community also work in this sector, because it's a lot of money, let's be honest, to work on. And also, what election was the most, biggest turnout and interest in this year, 2023? So our analytics prepare some information about elections in Kazakhstan. So it was pretty big turnout, 69%, but obviously we can't, prove all information from Kazakhstan voter procedures, because it's still democracy development there. But it also was interesting because it's first elections of AKIMs in this year. So it's first type of these elections in Central Asia. So our managers think that it's pretty interesting fact for you. And if you're not so much interested in Kazakhstan policy, we can say that, turnout in the United States also not so big. And if in 1990, so 100 years ago, it was 73%. So our ancestors was more political active than we, as we can see. And, in 2000, it was less than 50%, and now it's 66 and 9% in the United States. So one more issue to discuss, about like turnout and interest in election in the United States. One more issue which interesting in the European studies, that turnout to elections to European Parliament not so big. So people really not interested in coming to elections to elect members of European Parliament. Also we said that congressional spendings 2020 it was federal spending on 2020 elections dropped 14 billion and was the most expensive elections in United States history. 14 billion looks interesting. One more time, we want to discuss issue. Is it good to have experience of Australia to have fines for not to vote? So also in this panel discussion, we will discuss these issues, which important trends in political management business, also we will discuss role of we will discuss also a role of social media, of other tools, and so on and so forth. So firstly, I will give word to Karen to reflect to these numbers. So one more time, it's pretty much money here in United States, which we spend for elections, not for, green project, like hospitals, but for elections. Is it good as a trend? Is it good for competition of ideas? This trend. And what about turnout? Is it problem or it's not problem? Because I know that your direct case, which you work on as a case, it's case of making higher turnout and registration of voters. So please, your points about
I want to agree with the previous panel in terms of the super PACs, that if we could do away with the super PACs that have all of this dark money that no one knows where it comes from and where it goes, that would be very valuable. And it would, I think, change our numbers. But the kind of work that I have done to change the voter turnout numbers, well, first of all, in the 70s, I've been around a while. In the 70s, I was running NARAL, the National Abortion Rights Action League, and started a political action committee. This was before super PACs. And because it became clear that the issue was going to be decided in Congress and in the elections. And so, and at that time, our mantra was, if it doesn't bring workers to campaigns and voters to the polls, just don't do it. And so we were trying to turn out, but that was my first education on turning out voters. And then I did the same kind of activities with a couple of disarmament organizations that I started in the 80s. But it's been in more recent years that I've really focused on voter engagement and voter turnout. And I think I have proof that it works. I had a protocol that I called Trusted Sources, which I worked with the heads of nonprofit organizations, often with 501c3 groups, those that can have tax-deductible contributions, but cannot endorse candidates. So they thought they couldn't even say the word election in an election year. I worked with the heads of these organizations to help them understand that, yes, you can do voter registration and get out the vote, and you just can't endorse any of the candidates or make your messaging sound like you're endorsing one of the candidates. And I've done this several times. The last time was in 2020, and I called it Every Woman Vote 2020. And each time I did this, I worked with a data firm that sent the millions of names from the organizations to this data firm, and they would provide updated contact information, missing cell phones, correct emails, and they also provided voter engagement information. So the organization leaders would know which of their members were not even registered to vote. And so I helped them do specific messaging to them that was different than the messaging to the people who vote all the time. And I did this every time, and every single time we were able to prove that that kind of trusted sources, getting a message like register and vote, is more impactful, has a greater impact if it comes from somebody you know, rather than a stranger calling you or knocking on the door or writing a letter. That's very effective, but it's even more effective if it's from a trusted source, because the data firm would then afterwards send the voting information to the organizations. And in every single case, whether it was the women's groups or the peace groups, or just general nonprofits, their impact on voter turnout was greater than the national turnout numbers in every single case, every time I did this. So when we talk about what is going to be an effective way, and there are other groups that are now starting to do this, and they call it, what did we say they call it? The organizational, relational organizing, yes. And it makes sense, doesn't it? And so I've done this with the abortion issue, and I think that when abortion is on the ballot, we saw this last year, we saw it in previous years since Dobbs, that people turn out, Republican women turn out as well as Democrat women. So I think that there are just some issues, and I think that gun rights will be another issue, and I think issues of climate. I mean, this saving our planet so humans have a place to live is one of the most important human rights issues that we can think of. So.
Thank you. As I got your thing that turnout lower one more time because people don't care about mostly issues, or you think that it will go in higher because people, polarized and care? So what's your prediction about turnout in the United States? Yeah, right.
Well, I think the division in our country and the polarization is sad. It's terrible. It could ruin our democracy. But I want to thank you and the other organizers for bringing together a group like this where there are Democrats and Republicans, and maybe we can find a way to work together. And I think that if we could do that, at least some of the issues would benefit from it. But turnout, I think people turn out with positive messaging, and when the previous panel that talked about economy as being the most important issue, I think the people who support, as we heard on the panel, that the economy, your life is better under Trump, there can be an argument from the Democrat side that there's employment has increased. And anyway, I think that on all of the issues, presenting a positive message, that's just me, maybe. I would rather think positive than negative.
Thank you, Karen. I have a question to Jason. Yeah, we can share to Mike. It's look monumental. I prefer like in this way. But anyway, so Jason, you let's go to. We talk a lot about presidential elections. You know about super PACs, about most funded elections. So let's move to municipal level. U.S. Measure it's in pretty aggressive, with pretty aggressive base. So it's not so much Democrats in your state. So can you share your case directly, how you do your campaigning? And in some details. So, what tools do you use in no, your town? What was effective? What wasn't effective? What about turnout? Do you work with messaging like by yourself, or how you communicate with party and like opinion leaders from party? So share please your direct experience, as some iconic experience for municipal way. Yeah.
Now, how long do I have to explain all that?
As usually 5 minutes for most important part. Yeah.
So I'm Jason Charlton. I was the mayor of Tupelo, Mississippi. As you might can imagine, Mississippi is a red state. We for at least 20 years, the Republicans have completely controlled the state. Something that gets lost in that is while there's continued Republican success, the Democratic candidates for governor, the special election for Senate, consistently get above 45%. So 46, 47, even 48%. They just haven't gotten over the threshold to actually win on a statewide level. So it's solid red in that the Republican always wins, but how close it is in a lot of the elections kind of gets overshadowed. So I was the first Democrat elected in Tupelo, Mississippi in about 30 years. Tupelo is a city that voted about 60% for Trump both times. And I got 60%, 59% as a Democrat. And then my reelection campaign actually did not have a Republican opponent. So was very proud of the job that we did. I liked a lot of what Jay and the gentleman online were saying. To paraphrase a little bit about the candidate being true to themselves and their message, to me, sincerity, especially on a local election, sells. The fact that the candidate actually cares. I was a little bit fortunate in that I was kind of the hometown boy in the election, and my opponent was from the evil city of Jackson, Mississippi. He was a Republican president of city council, and the newspaper actually did an article about both of our kind of growing up in politics, and then they kind of leaned in heavily on that my opponent was voted most likely to be mayor of Jackson. And they had pictures of me in my high school football outfit from uniform from Tupelo. A lot of it, messaging, voter turnout is crucial. One thing I was extremely proud of, in the South, race, is just a dominant factor, especially in Mississippi. My numbers as a Democrat in Tupelo, Mississippi, I got exactly 100 fewer votes than President Obama got as far as the BVAP, the turnout in the city of Tupelo. And that combined with sort of a hodgepodge effect of family, friends, high school connections, small town politics, those factors all play together. As far as the fundraising, certainly I think we're being reported. I do not want to compare myself to the skill of President Obama's team or those prolific fundraising machines, but on a much smaller scale, we did all of those things. So we had, online just called 10 to win and asked everyone to give $10. And the mindset behind that is if someone gives to your campaign, whether it's $2 or $2,000 or any other amount, they're vested in your campaign and they're committed to your success. So we tried to do that, the widespread. In Mississippi, the campaign laws are a little different. You can, of course, give yourself or loan yourself any amount that you want. Corporations are capped at $1,000 donations, but individuals can give unlimited amounts. So, we tried to do all of those, have, different fundraiser events. And then I would just kind of wrap that up and we can do any kind of questions you want. In any election, from city council, mayor, president of the United States, I don't think that, we can certainly talk about the division, the hate messages, all that of we hate the same people. But I also do not think there's a substitute for hard work. Voters want to see that candidate beating the bushes, doing something every single day. And our campaign used social media very effectively on that, to the point where people would, I would get comments of, I'm tired watching you. And I was very tired myself. I mean, it was grueling, politics, the hours are long. But also just candidly, not every single picture was taken that day. You had a team that strategically posted those messages on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, or whatever, to show the different things that we were doing every single day. And then just back to the same, what we were very successful in doing was being the more sincere candidate, as far as we want to see the city of Tupelo succeed. Like, I'm not just running to be mayor. This is my home. This is where I was born. This is where I'll be buried. This is where my family is. Failure is not an option for us. Everything I own is here. I promise you I want Tupelo to succeed. And I was fortunate, and I didn't have to make that up, that was sincere. But I say that to just reemphasize that sincerity, positivity, those things can be winning, at least on a local level still.
Thank you. We directly interested in your experience and in the same campaigns, because we'll be happy if Obama now watch our conference. But I think mostly people who members of IGAPA, it's people who really work on a local level, on level of parliament. So that's why I have one additional question. So can you explain one, town hall or house meeting, which was pretty successful, and how many people who your supporters you get from every such type of meeting, and then we compare this with Canadian experience, and it will be interesting. Story of one meeting and results.
Just the story of one meeting, and now I'm on the spot. Well, the first neighborhood meeting that I went into, the city manager was up there just getting completely yelled at, and I didn't know if I'd made the right decision or not. So that was one of the first. But we did what you'd call town halls, but neighborhood association meetings. And the very first one I did was at a group, mainly people with physical limitations, and we put it on, I guess it was Facebook Live or something like that. The media picked it up, but it's kind of one thing I say a lot in life and politics, both. It's better to be lucky than good. The photograph, my opponent was an older gentleman, and it just so happened to have like a real grouchy look on his face, and like kind of contorted like that in the picture. And I happened to be smiling and talking like this. And that's the picture that was on the front page of the newspaper the next day. So, Jay, it's kind of better to be lucky than good sometimes. And that kind of started building momentum. And then to get back to fundraising, it's a double-edged sword. It's kind of like the cliche of if you see somebody, you apply for a job, but you can't get a job without experience. And you say, well, how do I get experience without a job? Raising money is very similar to that. People want to know that you can win before they give you money, but they don't think you can win until you raise money. And so things like that, the picture in the paper, helped start getting people to give money. And, at first it was the checks of, well, he might have a chance. And then closer to the campaign where I thought, hey, we might actually win, was when the people that I knew that were very involved in politics and kind of always on the side of the winner, they started wanting to be involved in the campaign too.
Thank you. And last question for 5 seconds. How many meetings you hold every day? These voters. As a campaign. So how much?
Oh, just nonstop all day long. I mean, so in small town, Tupelo, Mississippi, like literally from the coffee shops, you were somewhere at all times, neighborhood meetings at night, fundraiser at someone's house, the phone calls nonstop, text messaging to your fingers hurt. Like it's messaging in campaigns is not for the faint of heart. I mean, there's a lot of hard work involved.
Thank you. Miriam, to compare this experience one more time, not all our audience is people from United States. So that's why we must understand that even fundraising practices, it's pretty different in different parts of the world. And for example, many countries haven't voter registration as a process. So Miriam, can you explain your experience of leading election campaign as campaign manager? And maybe you also can present direct case with some tools and compare these tools with other international experience. So I'm not sure that all audience here also know all election procedures in Canada. And I'm sure that elections in Canada, it's more affordable for candidates than here. So am I right or am I wrong? And voter behavior in Canada, it's the same or different? So it's so much impact of social media or not so much? Is it the same fundraising procedures or not the same? So let's start also from basics before your case to give people fully understanding how in Canada elections look like. And how it's cost, of course, because all here pragmatic people who want to have contracts, So please, floor is yours.
Yeah, that's a whole lot to sort of cover. I am by no means an elections finance expert, so I think what I would comment on is just my personal experience in sort of managing one of the key elections that took place in the campaign. But just to set some context for folks here and obviously those who are joining us online, and to sort of bring everyone up to speed about the current political landscape in Canada, to understand the background of that. As many of you know, in Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has now been in power since 2008. He was he was essentially elected to form a minority government in 2021. And has now completed 3 terms in office. He is now hoping that he will get a 4th term, which would be quite an anomaly for Canada, because in the history of Canada, the Prime Minister has ever completed 4 terms. The problem with him right now and with the party as we speak is that he's terribly involved. Every Canadian is pretty much exhausted with the news right now. And 60% of Canadians want him to step down or resign. He is also trailing very, very, very poorly and behind the Conservatives who are now leading in double digits. So if Canada were to sort of host elections today, only 22% of Canadians would actually vote. So it's a pretty bleak picture for the Liberal Party, and of course, the Prime Minister could go. But a lot of that has to do with kind of what happened in 2021, which is a major election that took place for us. I had personally managed the campaign for Deputy Minister Chrystia Freeland, essentially the second woman in command behind Justin Trudeau. And although my team and I were fairly successful in getting her, almost 50% of the votes from the riding, so she was successful in winning her riding back, we sort of encountered very similar challenges to the overall encounter. And a lot of that had to do with basically three things. So very poor timing. That was one. The second key factor was it was our first COVID-19 election campaigns. Very few of us had any experience with it. I think that campaign really, really well. And the third factor was the Liberal brand has over time really weakened in Canada and continues to weaken. So those are sort of like the three sort of key challenges that our team and I were essentially facing. And I think that COVID-19 was a very unique case because it sort of created a political brand management crisis for the entire team, primarily because we had already gone for elections in 2019, and then I was called for a snap election in 2021. The idea was that the Liberals were high in the polls, and they figured that if they were to sort of go back to the polls right now, because it does a lot of vaccinating Canadians, almost 70%, that Canadians would essentially give them a majority. And that is not what ended up happening. People were exhausted, and we had protests all across the country, some of the most stringent COVID-19 restrictions. And after the vaccines, most folks from the campaign trail that we sort of met with, talked to, they just kind of wanted to know, well, we've already done the vaccines, and what is it that we can do now? So that was one challenge. And the second really important challenge was the conflicts we were also experiencing. It was sort of like a rise in politics and the end of politics. We had voices from the right and the left, both kind of come out of the closet for the first time, and it was a very unique phenomenon for Canada to manage because we've historically been very sort of social left-centered democracy. And this is a current problem that's sort of amplified by disinformation. We recently had a foreign election meddling situation with China interfering in the election 2022, allegedly. Dig into that a little bit further. So that really changed the landscape for the country. So I mean, I guess I'm just highlighting some of the key challenges there.
Thank you, Miriam. So the next time we also will invite image maker to talk about importance of nice socks on elections. Yeah, you have big experience in that. You can yeah, it works. It works. Our coordinator said that I have minus 10 minutes on our panel. So I will finish with some blitz questions to you. So blitz question is question like for 30 seconds. So what is your most effective tool which you use on your campaign? I mean, what tool you like mostly? Social media work, phone banking, town halls. So what is your favorite tool and why?
I think I'll go back to what I said before, which is to reach out to people that you know, either with social media or with, mail or phone calls, because the people, if you hear it from somebody you know and trust, you're more likely to get involved in elections.
Right. Very wise, very wise. Jason, what about you?
I don't know if it's the
the phrase correctly, but I think you just have to do it all. Like you have to do social media, you have to do door to door, you have to do phone calls, emails, direct mail. You have to do every single bit of it. And the unfortunate, ugly truth is you have to worry people to death. And, I got tickled in my campaign, and a super respected kind of elder statesman of the city saw me at an event. And he said, I can't wait for this. And he was supportive, very friendly, but he said, I can't wait for this campaign to be over. I'm tired of seeing your name in my mailbox. So you have to do it all.
I think I was second what Jason just said. I think we've got to use everything we can in the toolbox to kind of get info confidence. And specifically, I can go to door conversations with many people. Sometimes I've noticed that in campaigns, there's a big divide between what's happening on the ground and what the campaign office perceives to be happening on the ground. So I think it's really important that you have direct connection with investments and kind of read on investments.
Thank you. And from my perspective, like my favorite tool is door-to-door campaign, because it's you can count results, and if you have a good message and good volunteers, you can gather more than 35% of supporters. So, and of course social media it works, but it's more work of your like PR staff than you, and working with volunteers it's always less expensive and make more strategic effort. So thank you so much for your time. Minus 10 minutes, it's not so bad. Yeah, so thank you so much to all panelists.
Everyone very much. In political campaigns, we must have the limitation time. Since you don't have your children in front, very much for the idea. Okay, so our next panel, I would like to introduce our moderator, Kim McBride. Please join us. McBride, yeah. Yes. So we have right.
Yeah, we have it right.
Here, but probably we had a big mistake in naming our organization. One of our speakers of the panel is Jonathan Samurai, Yelena Davrivanova, Liv Larson, Anastasia Maganova, and we have one speaker, Malta Motor Live. Just I will do that. You can speak something if I ask you to change time, because nobody can. Just try to be short, okay, and control the time. The final discussion topic is the role of social media in modern campaigns.
Okay, I guess we'll just introduce ourselves to start.
Yeah, like moderators, you wish to introduce, let's introduce speakers themselves, or you as you wish.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. My name is Jim McBride. I'm a communications and political strategist. I live in Virginia, so I'm very involved in Virginia politics. I worked at award-winning PR firms in New York City and in Northern Virginia. I worked for other organizations like the International Association of Firefighters, which represents the United States and Canada. Firefighters that are part of the union. And I did that after 9/11 when Homeland Security was one of our top issues. I've created communities like Network for Progress, which reached out to young professionals during the Obama years. I've done Blue Victory War Room briefings starting during COVID to be able to engage Democrats virtually. And I'm a member of the Northern Virginia for Biden, Virginia Grassroots Coalition, and Fairfax County Democratic Committee. And I helped start the Obama campaign in Virginia. I was the first volunteer database coordinator through the primary in 2008. And I founded Generation Obama, which was a young professionals program. And I've been president of the Arlington Young Democrats and a vice chair of precinct operations for the Arlington Democrats. So I have a wide variety of experience. A lot of this experience has to do with the use of social media, especially during the Obama campaign. I will go down the line here and let our guests introduce themselves. I guess we'll start with Elena. Yeah, sure.
Hello, my name is Elena Vertikanova. I am Ukrainian. I'm an academic, but not the one who lives in your own world, because for the last 15 years, I have been working for international organizations in Ukraine. It was National Democratic Institute, and after that, German Foundation, Kevin Foundation. So I contributed a lot of efforts into democratic development of Ukraine, its European integration. And I also worked a lot on Russian disinformation campaigns, and especially on what it has been doing since 2022. I published several books, one of which is devoted to strategic communication, and another on the image of Ukraine in media, which presented like 3 different images of the country: Western, Russian,
my name is Lee Larson. I think I introduced myself earlier. I'm a political hack, and just do, I've done campaigns for the last 20 years on all different levels, from presidential to gubernatorial, state Senate, U.S. Senate, congressional. And in fact, my last 2 races were Fairfax County School Board and a Fairfax County supervisor's race, all of which we faced nasty attacks that were untrue on social media. So we'll talk about that and see where that goes. The only other thing I would say is, don't trust. I'm a first-generation American whose family came from Canada. Never trust Canadians. They play with 12 people on the football field.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anastasia Magonova. I am the owner of Magonova and Partners Agency. We are an official contractor of USAID in Ukraine and specializing in government relations and public relations. I was an advisor to the chairman of the State Property Fund of Ukraine. I was an advisor of to the head of Economic Security Bureau of Ukraine, and now I work with the Yermak Makpol Group and specialize on spreading the information about the sanctions.
Okay, well, I think we've talked a lot about the threats of social media. And so I think it might be a good idea to start out with, if we want to go down the line and talk about any recent case studies or maybe upcoming potential case studies on how social media can impact the election in a new and innovative way. I guess, Elena, feel free to share anything that you've been doing or will be doing that you think might be enlightening.
Well, Russians have a very interesting thing. They say to demolish is not the same as to construct. And this saying very much reflects how Russia deals with disinformation. Because Russia doesn't go after certain politicians or doesn't go after certain elections in a certain country because it wants to promote its geopolitical goals. But it wants to undermine the idea of democratic election, the idea of democratic institutions. So these disinformation campaigns, they are not even connected to only one election, even though that it is also true, but they are spread in time. And this threat doesn't have to be taken lightly because Russia invests more than $1 billion annually into its propaganda machine, and you know very well how its troll farm works. how Russian propaganda TV channels like Sputnik and Russia Today provide fake news for distribution in social media, and how unfortunately all this information destabilizes societies and antagonizes societies and bring in all these agendas that make people really angry. And it's really hard to currently say whether Russia is very successful in every incident. But if we look into what is going on, for example, in Europe, the alternative for Germany, the political party which was created in 2013, has become very, very popular very quickly, and it is the first right-wing party that has become a member of the German parliament since the end of the Second World War. If we look at the elections in France, Marine Le Pen, a very populistic and also right-leaning politician, she finished second, and I mean this is not such a bad result. And if we look at how exactly Russia is working on achieving its goals, I mean, it goes as far as it just can, especially when it comes to creating a totally alternative realities. One of my personal favorite fake news that Russia was using in relation to Ukraine is that Ukrainian government promised soldiers who are fighting in the west of Ukraine 2 slaves each. Yeah, 2 slaves each for participating in defending our country. And Ukrainians were joking for a long time that those slaves will really help us with our chores at home. And another one, which is also outrageous, is that Americans and Ukrainians together are working on the biological weapons in laboratories on the territory of Ukraine. And this biological weapon is it's a virus which is inserted into birds, and these birds will fly to Russia, and the birds will infect Russian population because the virus affects only ethnic Russians. So to me personally, the very fact that some people buy these stories and I live with them on one planet, I mean, this is scary, honestly. I can give you as many examples as you are interested. I just would like to emphasize that unfortunately, the disinformation campaigns that Russia was undertaking since approximately 2009, when they tried it for the first time in the framework of the local elections, now they have become truly skillful in what they are doing. And both America, who witnessed attempts of Russian influence onto elections, I mean, you have all read reports that were presented by Mueller, right? Then, they do it also in Europe, and I'm very happy that currently governments realize how threatening that is for democratic order and start taking certain actions.
I can't scare you about the birds. You check out the Pizzagate here.
Yeah,
Into that.
We actually have one more person, Malka Bondar, who is actually on Zoom. I kind of couldn't really see the fine print that she was one of the people in there. So go ahead, introduce yourself, and feel free to share a little bit of insight on social media.
Hi, everyone. My name is Malka Bondar. I'm originally from Ukraine. I relocated to the United States about a year ago. I am a computational professional with the expertise in the reputational management and public relations. So my main job used to be the restoring the reputations of public figures who happen to be involved in public scandals, especially in social media. So that's my main tool. I'm very practical about it. And I am I actually wanted to point out that maybe it is not an ideal instrument for debunking propaganda, because the algorithm of social media is designed the way you are getting the information mainly from the source that are the closest to your point of view. So your chances of getting any information from the source from the different part of the paradise of the divided world is like really limited. So let's say if you are pro-Israel, you are getting the information in your social media mainly from pro-Israel sources. If you are pro-Russian or like pro-Ukrainian, it means that most of the information that you will get in social media will be like also from other users, other sources sharing the same position. So like that is why it makes the whole picture even more polarizing. But the fact is that using social media tools, what you can do, you can get the perfect combination of 3M. It's the winning combo of message, money, and move. As you already know, the social media can be the base of incredibly success crowdfunding actions. And also my Ukrainian colleagues certainly remember that Ukraine in a very short time went through two revolutions, and both of them were actually the first trigger point was the call of action in social media. So it's proof that the instrument of call of action in social media is incredibly powerful. You can do there a lot, and you do, and it is totally possible.
All right, I think we officially I think we lost your audio, Malka. Or can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Just keep on, they will fix just there.
Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead to Leaf, and then maybe we can go back to Malka a little bit more.
Positive spin social media.
Well, I realize that well, you know,
my interpretation on social media is heavily influenced by the propaganda aspect of it, but I will point out some useful things, and I will also expand what social media is to give you some good tools. We have a person here for a company I used to work for, and they run a thing called Speak For, which is a tool that you can embed in your website if you want to reach out and address members of Congress, things along those lines. It's a one-stop shop in the website that allows you to send a fax, to send an email, in some cases a phone call. So those type of things are a great addition to what I would call social media aspects for reaching out, whether it's a campaign or whether to your member of Congress or the White House or whoever you want to contact. I'll also point out the good thing about social media, which was made it the golden child of political tools, was the quick turnaround that you can change message. Usually if you do a TV buy, you buy for, let's say, 1,000 points, which would go for California, let's say Los Angeles, it's going to cost you about $10 to $15 million. Most stations need 48 hours to stop a spot and start a new spot. And you also need that 1,000 points of media behind the spot to get the penetration. So what social media allows us to do is to take an ongoing situation that pops up. If it's a local campaign, there was a crisis in the media or the budget of the local board of supervisors, and you want to address that. You can make that change right away. You can have new ads up, make that change, and have that out immediately which is a great tool if you're trying to reach out and take advantage of something that happened, either positive or negative. The other thing is when we do a TV ad or you do a piece of mail, you can take that TV or piece of mail, show it to a group of people or around the office or what have you, or if it's TV, you can do what we call a focus group, which costs a lot of money. But you take it, and if you're spending $10 to $15 million, it might be worth another $300,000 to get this focus group going. But you take it, run the ad, you produce it, and you say, here you go. What do you think? It stinks. I can drive. If you're doing social media, you can do what we call A/B testing, which means I put up a message on answering against, if you're a Republican, you're answering against an attack on abortion, and you answer it in one or two ways, depending on what your polling information said would be the best aspect of that. You can take a look, and within 2 or 3 days, you can have enough data back on those ads that tell you ad B is working better than ad A. So I drop ad A, put all the rest of the money behind ad B, and I run with ad B. And it's not only on messaging, there's a lot of information out there on colors that work better with women, colors that work better with men, colors that emphasize a financial or issue, one that emphasizes more of a social issue. So knowing these, there's all these different aspects out there, it's always a great tool to have this type of advertising platform that allows you to use these particular things to address a particular demographic. Plus, it's a lot cheaper than TV ads. So, I think that's the main thing I would say is the good focus on it. Unfortunately, today, you also need to push back against the propaganda ads. Ads that run, you're trying to push an ad on lower taxes, and there is a group out there saying, forget about lower taxes. There's a pizza parlor in downtown Washington, D.C. that is running a pedophile ring, and they're also eating the babies. And it's all visited by Democrats. So there's that crap that's out there. And I think the only way to address that is to educate the people who are using these tools, us in the room, and we have a responsibility to do that, to tell people, read something, don't take it literally. My favorite meme is one of Abraham Lincoln on the internet, where he says, never trust everything you read on the internet. Abraham Lincoln, 1890. I mean, there's that type of stuff. We need to be more critical on what we digest, whether it's on social media, newspapers, TV, whatever. But it's a great tool, inexpensive. I think it levels the playing field a lot of times, and no one's going to leave it.
I mean, one thing that to keep in mind is that, even though there's a threat that comes from social media, one of our best practices can be the solution to counter that threat, which is building relationships in the community, becoming a trusted messenger. That's something that I hear a lot with campaigns, that adds a lot of value. All right. So I guess we'll go to Anastasia, and then maybe we'll revisit Malka again.
Thank you. So I'm supposed to talk about elections in Ukraine and spreading messages through social media and other instruments. But on Monday, Zelensky announced that the delay of elections. And, I totally support this decision because Ukraine has so many issues to manage. We have 4 million replaced people. We have people who are in the army, hundreds of thousands. We have missing people. And actually, we have people who live on the territories that are under Russian control. And we don't have a city that is not under bomb attack. And I think it's quite dangerous and irresponsible to ask your own nation to, hey guys, together on the street and let's vote. Speaking, what I would like to say that government communication has to be rethinked and refined during the wartime. And Ukraine's case is quite interesting because it gave us an opportunity to explore how to do politics during the war. And speaking about elections and messages, it's absolutely the people who to be the opposition of the president is quite challenging during the war because of messages. It's hard to be it's hard to I forgot in English it's hard to say that president does something wrong without appear unpatriotic or without being without appear patriotic. And so this is and moreover, all these negative messages they are not only for Ukrainians. They are also can be used, as you've said, used by Russian propaganda, and not only on the Russian market. They can be spread all over the world and influence the war. So that's what I wanted to talk about. And speaking about social media, now we have not elections, but we have these government messages. And we as professionals now work in Ukraine, work in this tiny line between security and democracy. And we have such situations when we have to push security on first place and democracy on the second one. And we can do it in social media, in media. Speaking about social media, it will be very hard for the opponents to be heard by the Ukrainians because they don't have instruments. All of TV channels are under government control. Our office of the president has huge infrastructure in social media, and so it will be very hard. And moreover, but Ukrainians, according to last research, Ukrainians doesn't watch TV. TV is only the fourth. First one, it's true. First one, messengers. Second, Facebook. Third, media, like online media. And fourth, TV. Thank you.
You have to understand the benefit of the breathing.
Is that something in the background?
Yeah.
Okay. Malka, do you want to try to repeat your last minute or so, or and feel free to share any other thoughts about the power of social media, things like that.
The benefit of the breathing.
All right, I think it's not we can't hear you, unfortunately. The one thing, yeah, feel free to talk in the chat. The one thing I would say is somebody who's been involved since the Obama campaign is, the social media kind of started out kind of a happy-go-lucky opportunity to empower people to speak out and to connect and build communities. And we mentioned the Howard Dean campaign earlier. And that through Meetup, that was actually a good tool for that campaign. And in recent years, it's evolved with, Twitter went from being an opportunity to have everyone have a voice to kind of everyone be able to go to war with each other. But some of the recent success stories that I've really been impressed with is, say, the Yang campaign in 2020, which catapulted a candidate who he wrote a book, but that's pretty much it. He was technically a nobody. Catapulted him into national recognition. And I saw the other day that Barack Obama endorsed universal basic income, which was one of his ideas. So obviously the message got out, and he was basically a message candidate. He used social media to kind of not just run for president, but to get some ideas out there. And in 2021, John Ossoff's campaign was really effective with social media, or in terms of social networking. We talked about relational organizing earlier, and they actually, I think this is common knowledge or an open secret, they actually paid folks in certain communities who may not be super political to engage their networks to get out the vote. And so there, I've heard people talk about that as possibly a tool for 2024. I don't know exactly how it would be set up, but the idea of empowering community leaders, community organizers to, through funding to get out the vote could be a very, very powerful tool. Actually, the Obama campaign is using an app called Reach, which the Ossoff campaign used, and other campaigns have used, to basically have their volunteers canvass their friends, reach out to their personal contacts, and let the campaign know if they want to volunteer and support the campaign. So that, it can be a really effective weapon. There is a lot of obstacles that I'm personally familiar with, and really kind of changing the culture of campaigns to not just be about ads and kind of knocking on doors is a powerful weapon, but the idea that you can work smarter, not just harder, by engaging people you already know, that concept still needs to, permeate the campaign world more. So anyway, so that's something that I'm seeing on the horizon as possibly a game changer for 2024. And I think with all the controversies, especially young people maybe being upset at the administration right now, getting out into their communities and engaging them and listening to them using social media, is really important. Okay. I hate to go back on the negative, but actually, do you want to talk a little bit about how to counter this disinformation that we're getting?
Yeah.
Well, countermeasures are super important, and you probably follow how Facebook tries to insert instruments, for example, not only marking the news as information that is trustworthy or doubtful, but also introducing the redirecting mechanism. So when a person is looking for example, ISIS information about ISIS, this person will be also introduced to anti-ISIS pieces of information. So if a person is looking for some Russian propaganda, then this person will be introduced to narratives that will debunk those messages that this person is exposed to. And I think this is super important. But unfortunately, when it comes to looking for accounts that belong to bots and trolls, Facebook is not doing as well as it should be, because currently they are reporting that they traced a couple of hundreds of such accounts. But there was a study about such accounts that were created in Twitter, and their accounts, and there were like more than 17,000 of such accounts. So it means that these tools of tracing and closing such accounts, they are super important. And it is very unfortunate that when Twitter, which was a very nice platform, as you said, is now turning into something else. And Elon Musk, as you know, eliminated all the moderation procedures, and unfortunately, these steps allowed Twitter to become the biggest platform for fake news distribution. And also it allowed to distribute like super radical messages, like elimination of Ukraine is a good thing, like it can be allowed and so forth. So I think that we all should really work together, and EU is now working with big tech to introduce very clear rules of how to manage this counteraction to disinformation.
I agree. I agree with everything you said, except everything you said does not sit well with my people, which are conservative Republicans. Everything you said smacks of the word deep state. Oh, you want to make sure my messages are monitored by Facebook. You want regulations back on Twitter. Why? Because you want to keep me from getting the real information? What's going on there? So I think, there's ways of doing this. And my idea is this. And the thing is, the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, all these players are watching what happens here with Facebook, and they're changing their tactics like a good military operation. If you block me here, I'm going to go here. So you find all these accounts that are thrown off of Facebook, but they pop up as web pages all over the place, a fake newspaper here and there, what have you. And so I think, it's the paper I wrote was, social media is a knife. Is it a good thing, or is it a knife being held to our throat? Are we selling the Russians the rope that they will use to hang us with? Because it's not, like you said, it's not to get a particular person elected. It's to drive the division. It's to drive the anger that is out there. Now, TV has done it in the past. Radio, I've seen some really nasty pieces of mail. I created some of them. So, that drive home a message of this person is bad, not good. It's a bad man, bad woman. Don't trust them. Social media goes even further and says, these people want to kill you. These people want to destroy your lives. They want to ruin, they want to enslave your family. And those are things that give rise to anger. And it's not just the social media. The social media and the anger that has driven voters is now being propagated by angry politicians, because they know if they put the anger out there, it's backed up in social media and they can get away with this. So I think somebody did mentioned earlier, we may be reaching a tipping point in the angry voter and the anger out there, hopefully so. But I think the best thing for us to do is a social media usage, and I use Facebook a lot. Send pictures of my mom mostly, but Twitter and things like that. Except I can't go on Twitter now; it gives me a heartburn. But we must be better stewards of the information that we take in. We must take the information, research it, find it, and go from there. She's on social media.
The one thing I'll say can also put a kind of a bright maybe finish to the story is we talked about Obama's campaign, but one thing I have found is that Obama became famous because he gave a speech with a unifying message. He talked about how we're all kind of one, we're all one as Americans, or united as Americans. And yesterday, member of Congress Abigail Spanberger is a big supporter of national security issues, a former CIA officer. She announced that she was running for governor. And today I see a flurry of endorsements coming in. And I think her approach to politics really echoes Obama, where she's really tried to position herself as a bridge builder. She's a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus. She's like the vice chair. And she really doesn't have too many negative things to say about folks. She's really a coalition builder. And a lot of people are flocking to her support for governor in 2025 as of today. So I think that, yes, in the short term, like right before an election, it's, hitting each other hard, might get a few points here or there. But if in the big picture, in the long game, if you want to be the next Barack Obama, or somebody who really can bring people together and build large coalitions of voters, people like Abigail Spanberger, who might not get on TV as much. Well, she actually does get on TV quite a bit, but who might not be the hip names on social media. Those folks can be, in the end, the most successful. So I think that, and she actually is very good on social media in educating her followers on how to get in touch with her, what she's doing in Washington and things like that. There's still value in being, using social media for good rather than evil.
That gets into another thing of the use of taxpayer funded money to spread that message through social media, because she did it from our progression. But I'm sure you and I will see each other. I'm Jason, New York, so we'll see each other probably on the other side.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, I'm not going to comment on that, but sure. Yeah, you get one rebuttal, right?
Yeah. So it is actually a very important issue how to sell it. And there is one Russian joke, very short one. So there is this family who invites guests over for dinner, and when guests leave, the family cannot find one silver spoon, and they are looking around, and then they call those guests and they say, like, you probably stole our silver spoon, and they said, like, no, definitely we haven't. So the time passes, and this family cleans up the house, and they by accident find this silver spoon because it fell down behind the sofa. So what they do, they call those guests and they say, you know what, we found the silver spoon, but for your information, the bitter impression about remains. So this is about the disinformation. It is not being tackled. All those messages, all these kinds of information, it remains on the subconscious level. It remains, in our environments that we live in, and it does influence our everyday life and our choices beyond the choices.
Right. Who was our internet person?
Yeah, Malka.
Last attempt.
All right, Malka, would you like to say goodbye and we can give it one more shot?
No,
we can't hear you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for moderation of this. Useful, interesting. Just remember that feel free to contact everyone in social networks, or to contact the association, or anyone contacts software today, our guests and participants. And so now our last panel discussion. It won't be not a panel discussion. It will be like short interaction with the guests, with participants. So the topic is the research and election. Moderator Tadeusz Wall. I guess before no one introduced you yet. I mean, so let you read. So we have Kateryna and Jem, political consultant regarded as the number of power house, specializing in bringing together diverse stakeholders for electoral campaigns, outreach, and change management. Has been instrumental in electing progressive candidates at the city, district, state, and federal level. After some urging from colleges and helping split Michigan State from authority in 2020, launched Greenlight Consulting LLC in 2021 to build the gap between community organizing management, organizational development, and electoral policy. So we'll be quite short, and then we'll have time for some networking. So I guess like 15 minutes.
You'll be pretty good. Yeah.
15 minutes. We have part of the discussion, we have presentation, and part we have the directions with
Okay.
All right. Couple of names that have been consistent since we've been here. Even though we come from different places, we all believe not only in democracy, but we also believe in facts. And without research, you have no facts. And after the some of the research you brought up about voter turnout in other places, what do you think about how do we make research more of a norm in campaigns?
It's a really good question, because if we go to Eastern Europe and Central Asia, people don't believe in research at all. So people think that they will start campaigning directly, and they go to buy TV ads and billboards without research. So originally people can pay like $10-20 million for advertising without any research, without any focus groups, and so on and so forth. And that's why, which is most understandable for Western market, for United States, for Canada, it's not understandable for developing countries. And if we can see our presentation, we also have like statistics on 2022 of democracy index. And as we see in countries which have like bad democracy index from 1 till 3, they usually not use research. And it's also connect with their governing later. Because when they don't use research, they also don't feel their voters after being in office. So that's why it's very pretty interesting methods of understanding this correlation between democracy development and research tools in campaign management.
Okay, and would you say some research tools, are they more readily available to people, or some people don't have the exact knowledge on like what tools and tactics to use for research?
Well, first of all, I think in some countries in Latin America, it's pretty the same, because people who go to public policy, it's mostly people from business. And in business, when you start business from scratch in pretty aggressive economical environment, you don't do research, you just do business, right? No, so you go straight to the point. And they try to use the same logic in public policy. So even when we work, for example, in Kazakhstan, in Georgia, some people who came from business and who fund their campaign from their own money, they said, oh no, I'm an experienced person, I don't need any research, and I know what people need. Usually it's not true, usually it's not work, but it's a logic which we try and always with the IGAPA network and with our company to change, because sometimes people spend really like hundreds of millions of dollars without any research. And and sometimes they spend it. So in Ukraine, it was new political force. They spent $20 million of campaign, and they get 1% of votes. Because they just do something, yeah. And if you talk about like type of research, of course. We can do some cheap research, which will be, for example, big data analysis or analysis after your, we have discussion on a social media campaign. But if we go even to like work with pollsters and focus groups, it's not cheap, game. So you must spend like $10,000-$20,000 for every research. And on local level, of course, it's challenging. And that's why also some people said, hey, if I have fully $50,000, I can spend $20,000 on research. So it's also like problem of emergency markets, yeah, and the emergency like democracies. But some countries, as the United States, already use like neuromarketing research and other research, which sometimes too deep to understand your audience. In the part of like brains, eye tracker, all this stuff. And it's interesting to know if somebody in their practice use this type of research, not only classical like pooling, but also this type of research.
So would you say the challenge is researching, collecting data in a way that's kind of academic, but not too academic for people to comprehend, or?
No, I mean that on Eastern Europe and Central Asia, people don't understand that research is method which originally work. So they said, no, we haven't time for research. We have time for action. And that's why if they don't use research in business, they usually don't use research in political campaigning also. And that's why sometimes we have the same numbers. It's like $2 for one voter in Eastern Europe. It's the same money which we spent in the United States. because people don't do research and they don't use tools which more effective. So if they have money, they go to TV channel and buy TV advertising with a nice face without any research on this advertising.
And on average, how much does it cost to, I won't say win, but at least to be competitive in a Ukrainian or Eastern European election?
From $1.30 for one voter for all campaigning. I mean, if you count all budget for campaigns, it will be around $1.30, but better to have $2 for every voter. So if on your district it's 100,000 voters, usually you need $200,000 for all like research, team, TV, newspapers, work in the field, and it also connects that some people live in villages and it's quite expensive to have volunteers groups who go and work in every village because it's huge distances. So people not live like in New York in one building, like 5,000 people in one building. People live in villages where 500 people in every village, and every village like 20, 40 miles from each other. So just count like fuel and car to bring your volunteers to every village, and it will be pretty big budget. So that's why it's not so big difference between budget of campaigns like in Eastern Europe and Central Asia and here. So.
Well, what are some things we can use on the research front to, okay, we probably can't like fully defeat disinformation, but how can we better utilize research?
No, I think that now it's more data than we can use this data, because sometimes also people buy pretty expensive research, but nobody read that. Maybe you have it in your campaign, yeah, when you have very big pool and like it was direct face-to-face interview, very accurate, but candidate and his campaign manager not read it intensively. They see their points, but they don't see like what's the essence of these points. I mean, so it's a problem, and sometimes it's too much data. So, for example, when you do campaigning mostly in social media, it's a lot of data to analyze originally after all testing and after all campaigning about engagement, about feedback in every group where your volunteers work. So it's a lot of data. So I think that today, sometimes it's more data available than you can analyze. And of course, if you do like Obama or Clinton or Trump campaign, you have a lot of staff who have good education and experience to analyze that. But on municipal level, or if we talk about school boards, or if you talk about, not big campaigns or even primary work, people just haven't enough, people with experience and education to analyze this research, even if their offices get all this data from central office. Or from central political party. And it's sometimes bad in the United States, but it's pretty bad also in European country. And so, for example, if central political party do research for all country and they put and give this research to local level, on local office in some town, sometimes people just don't understand how to use this research. So they see, okay, we have rating 22, but okay, rating 22 is bad or good. It's like good dynamic or bad dynamic. What is anti-rating here? What problems people see? What focus group said about you and about your image, your stocks, your speeches, your TV speeches, right? So you just can't understand that. And I think now it's a little too much also analytics on TV and internet, because it's all in real time. And we also sometimes use research when panels see your TV show, and you can correct messages direct in process of TV show. So when people don't like some message, you just text your candidate, and the candidate can change to other issue. Neuromarketing research, the same. If you have like 15 second 15-second video, and you do neuromarketing research with eye tracker. When people concentrate their vision on some messages, you can short this video if you use neuromarketing research from 15 seconds to 10 seconds, which will be more affordable for your campaign. And it's all tools from classical marketing, and if McDonald's use that, why we don't use that? So from our experience, we do one TV ad, and we test it with neuromarketing. So we cut 10 seconds from 30-second video, which give to us more opportunity to show this video more to voters. And what was interesting that when we see eye tracker, like it's a special like tracker where people originally watch when they watch your video, we see that it was pretty women on this video who was on meeting, and we see that voters don't read our message. They like just look to these pretty women on video, and it's not that effect which we need to get on this part of video. So then we change this image with people to just messages and infographic, and people just read this message. So it's the same when you wait in airport and you see, I don't know, Chanel advertising. So you can't not watch that because it's attractive, because it's test on neuromarketing research, and it's give to you additional attraction to your neuro system. So that's why sometimes today big data is the same. So you can analyze big data, for example, from advertising company to analyze what billboard you must buy for your election campaign, or to what audience you can do micro targeting. But sometimes it's so much research that you just can't you must have specific staffer who will do that and who will add to your strategy and tactics some information from this research. It's pretty interesting time to work originally.
Do you find that research works better when media and academia are either like working together or collaborating together, or maybe working against each other, or?
I think you can do effective you can do effective strategy and effective tactics without research. Some people try to do that, and I know a lot of candidates who said, okay, research, it's not right. My wife know better which photo I must use. Yeah, you know the situation, right? Or not wife, or my friend, or I don't know, my colleague, or somebody else. So it's very typical for every country, right? And the same with speeches, public speeches. So one more time, your office, it's not your audience, right? And your wife, it's not your voter. So sometimes your wife is your voter, sometimes no. But people not use research because they, even when they're successful, and usually politicians, it's pretty successful people, they believe that their point of view is right. And it can cost like millions of dollars if they run to like election campaign. So that's why I think that research must be basic issue before, of course, like making strategy and making decision about type of communication. Originally, Jay talked on our last forum a lot about research and how he formed budgeting basics on research of like focus groups. When people said, yes, I trust, for example, to this newspaper or to this website, and why? So he, see focus groups and then decide what method of communication you can use. So if you have better research, you have more effective every dollar which you spend.
And what would you say are the more trusted places for research and outlets that people can turn to?
No, I mean, if you see some public research, obviously somebody wants you to see that. So it can be form research. I mean, like, for example, Republican voter, 46 Republican voters support aid to Ukraine. So we need to read this information because this research give to us opportunity to work for Ukraine, right? But somebody did this research for some reason. And that's why I trust in election campaign only that research which we order and which, like commercial company do for us. Or research which done in our office. For example, if we talk about some data or data from our campaign, and you can do your own research. For example, you go to door-to-door campaigns, and in some square, your volunteers bring to you 10% of effective communication, and some square give to you result of 40% of effective communication. So your internal research also can tell to you like how to change a little bit maybe your message box to be more effective, or that we can we as volunteers must work in pair, or it's must be like two women who go as volunteers, because every part of like your district can be interesting. But one more time, it's not good idea to trust public research because it's expensive, and if somebody pay for that and then publish it, it makes some sense to publish it. And on elections campaign, it's many times, in some countries it's regulated, in some no. I mean, publishing of research and source of this research, because if people see that, okay, like candidate Clinton have like more points, some people said, okay, she's more prospective candidate, I will vote for her, or if we talk as Jason said that, no, this candidate is still start-upper and haven't any points, what sense to vote for that? So that's why I think that like in business, you can buy some public research about market, but if you want to know some deep information about your market, you must pay for that, and it will be accurate, tailored information for you.
If I would have known how much of a grift information was, I would have just jumped straight into research instead of field and organizing.
All right, I think everybody do a great job, and let's on the final on our conference before our last dine time. Here we have still 40 minutes for networking. Ask our audience about their research and how often you use research on your campaigns on every level. Let's who use. I use and who. Not so much, right? Karen, I'm sure that you use research on your.
I have worked with campaigns that use research, but I haven't been directly involved in it. And I, now that you gave me the floor, I wanted to underscore something that Jim said. I have volunteered in 3 presidential campaigns, but I was a senior advisor in the Obama campaign, organizing Women for Obama, which was to the great consternation of my feminist friends. Why would I do that when we could have a woman president? And I said, we need a Black president. Anyway, it went on and on. But his point about the Obama campaign was doing some of this relational organizing way back in 2008. And that's what we did with Women for Obama. We got people who were committed to the election to reach out to everyone they knew and do a fundraiser or a discussion meeting. So that wasn't your question, but I took advantage of the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And one more issue when we talk about expert interview as research. Sometimes, of course, you can effort researchers, and sometimes you can just ask a lot of people of their opinion, and you do. It will be not accurate sample, but you anyway can understand something. But you came to some country and you grab Uber or taxi, and if you ask a taxi driver some questions about public policies or elections, you also will do little expert interview about this country and about some understanding of politicians. And who meets candidates who not use research and usually use only their office as sample? Such type of candidates. In Eastern Europe and Central Asia, it's 80% of candidates. Yeah.
Wow. Like usually here, those kind of candidates don't make it or just go by the wayside. Like,
Yeah, they need research.
Yeah, so our point is that we need research, and it's very important for international audience who not so much use research, that if you have like $100 of budget, it makes sense to spend $10, $20 from that 100 to research, because otherwise you just don't understand what you communicate. So it's the main message of our today's panel. And let's move forward to our networking. And from my side, also thank you to Tadeusz so much for his moderation, and his work in his state is great. So I'm told that you don't drive, so you stay with us, right? Yeah. Okay. And you can find our video on IGAPA Net YouTube, on IGAPA Net website. If you want to support, or if you like what we're doing here and in Europe and in Central Asia, you also can use Institute for Democracy and Development Stripe to support us, and it will be tax deductible for you if you are American citizen. And if you have some ideas to working together, also feel free to work with professionals from IGAPA network, and also with our company SIC Group. Of course, we will be happy to work with you. Thank you so much for your patience and for your resistance, because it's 9 p.m. And if you have some question or just don't know all people here, yeah, not so bad. Please meet people here, and let's work together. Thank you for your time, and see you on the next forum. Next forum will be about government relations, and after forum of government relations, one more our gathering about elections and campaign before it will be. So about government relations, we will hold forum on March, and about elections will be next forum on September, before big Tuesday 2024. So thank you. My name is Kateryna Odarchenko. We'll be happy to communicate with all of you and all our team. And thank you I see that our team from California is still with us. So thank you very much for your time. They most resistance. Yeah.
And your cards are on all the tables.
It's my personal cards on this table. Yeah. Thank you, Karolina. You see a person with experience. Thank you. Good night. Yeah.
So are they going to bring up the wine?
I got excited.